Strange encounters, mysterious apparitions, the unknown. These have intrigued the human race as far back as anyone can remember. It exists in almost every nation, culture, and certainly cannot be separated from Asian folklores. Do you believe in the paranormal? I am Ray. Welcome to my podcast. Yūrei is a ghost in the Japanese folklore comparable to the Western model of ghosts. Like their Chinese and Western counterparts, they are thought to be spirits barred from a peaceful afterlife. In Japanese culture, all humans have a spirit or soul called a reikon. When a person dies, the reikon leaves the body and enters a form of purgatory where it waits for the proper funeral and post-funeral rites to be performed so that it may join its ancestors. If this is done correctly, the reikon is believed to be a protector of the living family and to return yearly in August during the Obon festival to receive thanks. However, if the person dies suddenly or in a violent manner, such as murder or suicide, and proper rites have not been performed, or if they are influenced by powerful emotions such as the desire for revenge, love, jealousy, hatred, or sorrow, the reikon is believed to transform into a Yurei, which can then bridge the gap back to the physical world. The emotion or thought need not be particularly strong or driven. Even harmless thoughts can cause a death to become disturbed. Once a thought enters the mind of a dying person, their Yurei will come back to complete the action last thought of before returning to the cycle of reincarnation. The Yurei then exists on earth until it can be laid to rest, either by performing the missing rituals or resolving the emotional conflict that still ties it to the physical plane. If the rituals are not completed or the conflict left unresolved, the Yurei will persist in its haunting. Oftentimes, the lower the social rank of the person who died violently or who was treated harshly during life, the more powerful as a Yurei they would return. There are several markers of a Yurei. The Yurei is usually dressed in white, signifying the white burial kimono used in Edo period funeral rituals. In Shinto, white is a color of ritual purity, traditionally reserved for priests and the dead. The kimono can either be a katabira, which is a plain white unlined kimono, or a kyokatabira, a white katabira inscribed with Buddhist sutras. They sometimes have a hitaikakushi, which is a small white triangular piece of cloth tied around the head. The hair of a yurei is often long, black, and disheveled, which some believe to be a trademark carried over from kabuki theater, where wigs are used for all actors. This is a misconception. Japanese women traditionally grew their hair long and wore it pinned up, and it was let down for the funeral and burial. The hands of a yurei are said to dangle lifelessly from the wrists, which are held outstretched with the elbows near the body. They typically lack legs and feet floating in the air. These features originated in Edo period and were quickly copied over to kabuki. In kabuki, this lack of legs and feet is often represented by using a very long kimono or even hoisting the actor into the air by a series of ropes and pulleys. Yurei are frequently depicted as being accompanied by a pair of floating flames in eerie colors such as blue, green, or purple. These ghostly flames are separate parts of the ghost rather than independent spirits. Let's get into some ghost story. The first story is called the Ubume. This is the tragic ghost of a woman who has died during childbirth, with or without her baby. She returns to the living as she still cares about her children. She is usually depicted as a baby-carrying woman who gives her baby to passersby and then disappears. Once the passerby gives a look at the baby, it turns out that it was merely a big rock or bundle of leaves. She is sometimes depicted as a dreadful woman in a blood-stained koshimaki, carrying an underdeveloped fetus. In the case where the baby survived, the Ubume mother strives to save and care for her still living child by any means. She can enter the shops and buy some food for her baby, but instead of money, the seller will get a bundle of dry leaves. She also tries to lead the people to a place where her baby is so it can be found and buried or adopted by living relatives. Let's get to know a few more ghosts in the Japanese folklore. The Onryo. This kind of Japanese ghost story also relates to vengeful spirits, but unlike the Koryo, which is not necessarily a wrathful spirit, the Onryo is almost always a malicious ghost as they died full of anger and only returned to scare the living to death and take their souls. Victims of domestic abuse or women martyred by wicked stalkers or maniacs will most likely turn into Onryo in the afterlife. This category also serves as a staple for Japanese horror movies and has appeared as the renowned Kayako from the Grudge or Sadako from the Ring. It is believed that once an Onryo decided to manifest itself, the victim starts to experience nausea, heavy headache, and pain in the chest. When just passing by, this ghost could look like a collapsed woman, probably unconscious, but as you approach, she starts to make weeping, groaning sounds and whispers incomprehensible words. Eventually, she levitates towards the victim, reaching for the head in a bid to catch her or him, and finally covers the victim with its unkempt thick hair. Due to the dark and heavy aura around the Onryo, the victim experiences an unbearable headache, which eventually leads to death. Indeed, the Japanese folklore is filled with all kinds of ghosts. In our next podcast, I will be telling you stories from some of these Japanese ghosts. I'll be looking forward to scare you again.